you. My name is Dr. Andrea Pennington. I'm an integrative physician, acupuncturist, and brand strategist. My career in broadcast and digital media spans over 20 years. As past medical director for Discovery Health Channel, I've had multiple appearances on Oprah, Dr. Oz, and CNN, and my TED Talks have reached 2.5 million people. I've published 13 books in the last few years, and now I work anywhere there's Wi-Fi. For the last several years, I've been helping other doctors, dentists, healers, and coaches from around the world to share their messages with global audiences through personal branding, publishing, online courses, and media training. And what makes this combination unique is that I am bringing my 20 years of expertise as a professional speaker and coaching other people on their TED-style talks. So I know what it takes to craft a keynote, a TED Talk, and even workshop presentations so that you communicate your message with confidence and clarity. Hello, hello, beautiful people. Happy Sunday. I pray that you are doing well and that you are ready for yet another exciting deep dive business training live from the sunny south of France. How are y'all doing? I have just popped into the chat the worksheet for today. So you should be able to get a hold of this worksheet so that you can work. In other words, this session is all meant to support you. I wouldn't be here on a Sunday if it weren't for my commitment to support you and help you. So how are you all doing? Welcome to this deep dive training that is all about your target audience. This is all about you really getting super duper clear on who you are ideally meant to serve. So this is not an airy-fairy kind of a thing. This is crucial. Because if you want success in business, you have to be able to tell people who you serve. Am I right? So I would love it if you guys would pop in the chat where you all are from, what is good in your world, and did you enjoy our session yesterday? Was it too intense? Did it leave you with any questions? You can please totally feel free to pop questions into the chat. And I'm going to give a little recap. If you happen to be joining for the very first time, welcome. I am your host, and I am your host of the 6 days of deep dive live training. I am here to help you with your personal branding, getting ready for product launches, course creation, and even crafting your sales offers. Yesterday, we covered your brand identity, including your USP, which we'll briefly run through today. And today, we are here to help you nail your niche or target your tribe or define your ideal customer. There's so many different ways to say it, but that is what we are here for. So very glad to see we've got folks from the United States, from Italy. Where else are you here joining today? I would love to know. So I'm glad that everyone can hear me apparently. The link for today's worksheet is in both Facebook and YouTube and over on my Academy platform. All right, so how about we get into it? It's a Sunday. While we love hanging out, we are here for a reason, aren't we? We are here to find out what you already know about this idea of niching. Has anyone ever even used that term around you, this idea of a niche? All right, and we have Denmark in the house. What? Hello, hello, hello. All right, so let's do a little bit of a review, and then I would like for you to type into the chat what you currently think of when you think about a niche or a target audience. But for those who need a little refreshing, I'm going to refresh you. And for those who have your notes with you, They will be useful for today as well. And I promise you're going to see how this all stacks up to give you success in your life. All right, my friends? Sound like a plan? Lovely. So let's get this party started. All right. So just as a refresher, we're going to talk about what is a brand. So first and foremost, a brand is the image. It is the image people have of you or your company or your product. That's what a brand is. It is who and what people think you are. In other words, a brand is what you represent to people in their minds. It's also the experience or the promise that one will get if they are to hire you. Sorry, my slides are out of sync here. It's the promise, it's the expectation, it's the experience, it's the emotion that people will have if they decide to work with you or hire you. So yesterday we talked about some recognizable brands and 5 key elements that all successful personal brands have. And those include a well-defined niche, that is your target audience, that is the focus for today. And each of these have to be in place. You've also got to have a clear value proposition. And that's just a fancy way of saying what you give in exchange for their time or in exchange for their attention and money. You're going to need a compelling brand slogan or some sort of a catchy tagline, an engaging portrait photo so that we can really see who you are, and a cohesive graphic style. So just as an overview to get everybody on the same page, the niche is the first key element. It's the first element to a successful brand because this is your target audience. We have to know who you're talking to. In fact, I see one of our marketing friends in the US. Hey, good to see you. And there's this old marketing adage that we always say, if you're speaking to everyone, you're speaking to no one. So we've got to be really clear about who that target audience is so that we can speak to them in a way that connects. So when you define your target market in very simple words, that's going to help everyone involved. If you hire a marketer, if you hire a designer, if you're getting on stage or on a podcast, and you can't say, for example, oh, I'm here to help in the healing of all women. No. You can't say, oh, I'm here to help all parents who have small children. No. You couldn't even choose and single out one condition like, oh, I work with people battling depression. You've got to get more specific and actually narrow down your ideal client to the tiniest, most specific details. And this is how, again, you're going to be able to speak to them. And so that value proposition, that's, again, what you give in exchange for their time and money and attention. So in other words, it has to be abundantly clear the type of value you deserve. And, we covered some of that in our first deep dive session, but I'll be happy to help you pull a little bit more of that out if you need it. And that brand slogan, ultimately, if you really want to stand out and be remembered amongst the millions of other coaches and healers and light workers on the planet, it's not that you're competing against them, but you are competing against all the other distractions in your ideal client's mind. So having a compelling brand slogan or some sort of a tagline, something that can stick in people's minds, will eventually be something that they associate with you. And so having that catchy tagline can kind of like summarize the results that people can expect from you. And it's really what distinguishes a prestige brand from just a mediocre brand. Now, it should be obvious why we want a photo of you, but if it's not, the reason we do is it gives people a sense of the true essence of you. We happen to be in the era of personal connection. People don't want just slick stuff, and hype. They want a connection. And the best way that we can do that is to be able to feel your personality and your warmth coming through a photo. So you want to look relaxed and approachable and real. And then finally, it's that cohesive graphic style so that when people land on your website or they look at your business cards or they're on your social media profiles, we want them to have a consistent experience of the vibe and the energy that gets transmitted. Does that make sense? I don't see any more folks typing in the chat. Come on, give me a what if you're still here with me. All right. So yesterday we covered my system of the MVPs, the MVPs cubed. And the reason I take you through this so painstakingly is because I don't want you trying to create some false identity. I don't want you to try to be a copycat. Thank you, Crystal. Your goal is ultimately to realize the highest truth of you, of the authentic you. And I want you to be willing to embody that, to like level up and step up to become the best version of you. And I want you to be that everywhere. So the system that I teach is really based on these MVPs cubed and the RSVPs. So it's kind of like this alphabet soup. Now, typically, if we look in the world of sports, for example, an MVP is considered the most valuable player. And that's what I want you to be. I want you to be the most valuable person to your ideal clients. But in this way, with this system that I'm giving you, you're getting an exponential upgrade. You're going to the third degree here. So with this brand identity system, we're looking at the M, which stands for your mission, your message, your methodology. And so I've asked you in the last session, and if you haven't registered, please do register so you get all the replays and the worksheets. I even give you the slides if you're registered, these slides that you see on the screen. So your mission, your message, and your methodology, if you remember from Deep Dive 1, that's where you really get to articulate what makes you unique. And then we start looking at your values, your personal values, the values that motivate you to do the work that you're doing. We also looked at your vibe. That's the energy or the essence that comes across when people are working with you. And your voice, your tone of voice, the language you use, your purpose, your passion, your philosophy, your personality. All of this we covered in Deep Dive 1. So if you have that worksheet, please keep your notes with you because we're now going to link these to your ideal client. Does that make sense? And then for the S's, what we're looking at is your strengths, your style, and your specialties. Notice I said plural because I know there are many of you who are like me. You're multi-passionate. You've got a lot of tools in your toolbox, and that's fine. Don't worry about those people who say, oh, can't you just focus on one thing? Well, if your one thing is helping people, then it doesn't matter how many little things you have under that umbrella. You just need to be able to communicate it in a way that people get you. And that's what this system is really meant to do. It's meant to help you connect with people logically and rationally, but most importantly, as you'll hear from me as a neuroscience nerd, also from the heart and the brain level. So you start to connect mind, body, and heart together because it's really that level of trust that is going to allow you to make that relationship work even before somebody meets you. All right? So that's the MVPs cubed. Then in Deep Dive 1, we also talked about how to write and communicate or speak your value proposition. And normally when I ask people, hey, how would you describe the value that you deliver? They usually say, well, duh, I make people's lives better, or I take away their pain. I eliminate their stress. And, really that's a great starting point. But is it really compelling enough for a person to choose you over some other person? I mean, after all, if you think about it, most all life coaches and even doctors and therapists and nutritionists and fitness people, we all have the basic level of education or training. But how will you stand out? How will you talk about the outcomes that you can provide so that you are not necessarily seen as better, but just the right fit for that person. And so we do that with this RSVP method, okay? And the RSVP, I will remind you, stands for results, success, value, and your proposition, your promise. And so what is it you think? Type in the chat here. I know the value proposition is hard, but we're going to help you with that, Shelley, because you've already got it. I've seen all of your ingredients. Like pulling these things out with this alphabet soup is the hard part. And then piecing it together, well, that's the magic and that's the fun. So we can work on that. And so when you are trying to position yourself, we do want you to really focus on what it is you actually deliver. And since so many of my coaches and healers and light workers are very humble, spiritual people who don't want to brag, we have to rely very heavily on storytelling. And that's why we're doing all of this so carefully, is so that you can start to share some of the results that you get with people and just share from the heart about the people you've helped and how it's made you feel. And the best way to do that is with a transformational example. And this is especially good when you get into the media. Not that everybody necessarily wants to be on TV like I was, but you have to remember, if you are in the media, even social media is show business. Like you have to show us with stories and with your graphic images, even before you tell us. So if we look at kind of the value that you bring to your customers, we want to be thinking about the things that people are willing to pay for. People pay for results. People pay for transformation. And so if people land on your website, for example, can they tell instantly what's in it for them? What is here of value? It's just like when you're window shopping, right? And you're walking along and you're looking in and you're instantly kind of seeing, is there something there for me? Because research shows people don't stay on your website for very long if they don't immediately see something that grabs their attention. And so that's what this whole process is trying to help you do. It's trying to help you connect in a meaningful way, not just trying to push things or get people to give you their email for nothing in return. And so it's for people who are not really good at this. I've seen that it can really be like the worst. Since I expanded my business to Scandinavia, I noticed that a lot of people would just kind of assume that, oh, well, if I've got the website up with my credentials, that should be enough, right? And I can't tell you how many websites I've seen where it was just a bunch of words on the screen, and there wasn't this clear or coherent sense of value that you could get. And what your goal is to have your potential client say something in their head like, this is for me. This is for me. Thank you, Rob, one of my friends back in the DC days. So yeah, Rob says, I remember you always had excellent sound bites on TV as an expert. Thank you, Rob. Well, it was interesting for me because the way I came up with this system was based on my own experience at Discovery Channel and, doing the Oprah show a few times and really understanding, the way we connect with people is the same as what we do with documentaries. So in documentaries and TV news, at least in my day, it was all about giving you the facts, not fake news. And in documentaries, you draw people in through storytelling and your word choice and the images on screen and even the music, that all sets the tone. And you can instantly tell if something is for you or not for you. And the first time that I really got this aha moment that I could speak to my ideal client, even when I was just being a doc in the box, a TV expert, there was this lovely eye doctor that came to the Pennington Institute when I was back in DC. And she came in for a session to see if we were a good fit to help her with weight loss. And I did like I normally do, sit down, have a nice conversation, get to know and see the energy of the person, understand their background. And when I looked at her intake form, it said that she saw me on CNN. And I was like, well, when did you see that clip? And she said it was in the last 2 weeks. And I thought, well, that's really interesting because I wasn't talking about weight loss on that episode. What was it that made you think to call here to see if we could help you with your issue? And she was like, oh, I just knew. I just could tell from the vibe and the way you spoke. And so even though I wasn't talking specifically about her problem, which I'm encouraging you to do today, it was this kind of epiphany for me. Does that make sense? Are you getting kind of an idea of why I think this is important? All right, so I'm glad that you're starting to type into the chat. I see Margareta has already written her first value proposition. Margareta is a hypnobirthing doula in Italy, and she says, I propose that if you work with me during pregnancy, I will successfully help you to overcome the fear for birth so that you can enjoy this transformational experience in the most relaxed way possible. If you can achieve this by hiring me as your doula and doing a hypnobirthing course. So exactly, you can do this by taking this course or hiring you as a doula. You've got it. And now we get to work on that course, Margareta. Super excited. All right, so Shelley has also given a shot at her value prop. The art of surrender will teach you the secrets for reclaiming your power to remove the blocks that have kept you sick and unable to live your best life. All right, so you're getting there, Shelley. That's awesome. So it will teach you the secrets for reclaiming your power and removing the blocks. So that sounds great because you've both used something aspirational, like something I want to go toward is reclaiming my power. And you've used something about the negative, like I want to get rid of the blocks and reclaim power. And so that you can have the things that have kept you sick and unable to live your best life. So awesome. Awesome. You were getting there, my friends. All right. So should we get into today's information on exactly what a niche is? I didn't see anyone typing into the chat. How would you have described this before? Niche or target audience? I know a lot of you have already got experience in marketing, so you know this term. I'm just going to hammer it home for my Americans that I want you to say niche and not niche. But again, here I am in France, so I speak like a pseudo-Frenchy anyway. All right, so I'm going to share my slides with you. All right, here we go. So your niche is your target audience. And today I'm going to help you define your target audience and actually create what we call an avatar profile. This is really critical for you because this is what's going to help you in every single post that you write or graphic you create on Pinterest or Instagram. Every time you're interviewed and as you're creating your website, you're going to refer to this avatar profile, and it's going to help you immensely. All right, so if we look at the guy who actually made this word tribe a thing, it's the incomparable Seth Godin. And Seth describes a tribe as a group of people connected to one another, connected to a leader, and connected to an idea. So this is, you're going to see that we're really starting to describe these as humans. And I even hate using the word like ideal customer because it sounds so impersonal. So you really want to think about this from the standpoint of connection. Do you see that in the way that Seth has described it? And a tribe, in the way that Seth Godin describes, is it's really, the idea is to identify your target market or your tribe by being very clear and specific. And when you can precisely and accurately articulate the profile of the type of people that you're here to serve and the ones that you're actually likely to serve well, then all of your marketing and your communication efforts can be really, really streamlined. And as I said, it's not advisable. You cannot, you should not, nor would you even want to try to work with everyone. So for your sanity and for your success, I really want you to identify the ideal client so that when it comes to your marketing, you can attract people in particular categories. So even if you do say you serve men or women or parents or widows or military vets, you'll still be able to subcategorize your ideal customer. And once you do know who you're targeting, when you've identified this niche or target market, then you're going to start to speak in language that resonates with them. And so just for a little more of the fun of definitions, niche, it's pronounced niche. In the terms of ecology, a niche is an ecosystem or an ecosystem. It's an environment that has everything that a plant or animal needs to survive. So think of it as this whole ecosystem. It's not just the living beings like the animals or the people. It's also the soil. It's the climate. It's everything that allows those beings to thrive, really. Make sense? And so when you think about this in the context of business, a niche is defined as a small segment of a market that is suitable for your focused attention. So it's a marketing term. And at this point, for those of you who want to build a business or grow a business, you need to be focused on the marketing aspect, because word of mouth, that works wonderfully, but right now we're in lockdown. So you can't leave the house right now, right? It would be great. Normally I don't do a whole lot of advertising. I just appear on stages, speaking at conferences, and attract new clients. But here I am today, reaching my niche via cyberspace. All right. So understanding what your ideal customer is and what similarities they have. So you'll see on the worksheet that I'm asking you, I left it just a D, a B, and a P. Now I want you to write this down. So what are the demographics? We're going to get into it very, very specifically towards the end here. But it is their age, their gender, their income. Those are the basic demographics. But then we also talk about psychographics. This is where we start to talk about their personality, their preferences, any other little weird idiosyncrasies. I know we have a couple of animal lovers, and the beautiful Joana Soares, our lovely animal communicator, healer, veterinarian extraordinaire from Portugal, was talking about the kind of psychographics for certain cat people. Not all cat people are crazy. I'm just saying there is an extreme. So we want to think about those extremes, and also the behaviors. So when we're looking at your ideal client and we're talking about behaviors, we mean like their likes and their dislikes, their hobbies, all those kinds of things. Welcome, everyone. Glad to have you here. I see some new folks chiming in. Very good to have you. All right, so let's get into it. On your worksheet, you'll see that I've asked you to start off with what we call the good apples. So in other words, I want you to think about, okay, now we're just switching metaphors, thinking about the clients that you really want to work with, the good apples. These are the people that it's really a pleasure to work with them. Like, it makes you feel good. You love the idea of waking up in the morning to work with them. So if you were to bring to mind a few people that you've worked with in the past, if you haven't been working yet, if you're just starting a new thing, then I want you to think about yourself. If you were the good apple, because most of us, especially the coaches and healers, we've been that sort of ideal client. We were that. We've come through our own transformation. So what would the age, the gender, the marital status be as you really start to think about the people that you love working with? What are those attributes that they have? What are the qualities that would make them a really good fit? And then we want you to make a list of the bad apples. I don't know if anybody out there has ever had to fire a client. Has anyone? Chime in the chat if you've ever had to like terminate a relationship with one of your clients, whether coaching or consulting or even as a healthcare provider, when you're just like, this is not working. I know that may sound foreign to some people that you would actually fire a client, but that's what we do. The high level teams that I work with and the execs, okay, I'm seeing a bunch of yeses coming in. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, so it's not a foreign concept. We recognize that for us, we want to be aligned in our values. So specifically, the values that I'm talking about are your personal values, which we started off with yesterday when we were talking about the RSVP, your personal values. So some of you have met my friend Derry Llewellyn-Davies, the Welshman who is a co-founder of a company with me called Diamond Life Design and the author of this book, Life's Great Adventure. And he was previously known as the strategy man. And part of coming up with business strategy, and he's been advising these huge boards across Europe, at the multi-million pound level. And one of the key elements of his approach is that if there's someone who is out of alignment with values, that's enough for them to be fired. And he encourages the CEOs and the managing directors that he works with to really look at values. And, I had a client who was in one of my high-end programs. And by high-end, I'm talking like to the tune of 15 grand a year, which is, high-ish, right? And this individual started getting so stressed that certain aspects of their personality came out in such a way that I was shocked, first and foremost, but there were certain things that started happening, little emails being sent to my team, little like demands that I realized, whoa, what has happened? Our values are now in this mismatch. There was this lack of integrity. And when it came time for the contract renewal, I was like, no, thank you. We wish you well. But no, I have to protect my sanity and my clients. So you really do have to get clear on the types of people that are not a good fit for you. So I'm going to go now to the chat and see what you all have been chiming in on. And for those of you who are here for the first time, if you don't know who I am, I'm Dr. Andrea Pennington. Welcome. We are here for our deep dives. This is 6 days of deep dives, live business training. And today our focus and deep dive number 2 is helping you to nail your niche. And that is to define your ideal customer. So that's what we're going to do. All right, so welcome. I see that we have some new folks who are chiming in. Thank you all for being here. And so yes, there are several of you who have said, yes, you've had to fire people. And it has been, according to Miriam, the consistent ones who are good about doing their homework. This must be your good apples, yes. And the ones to fire, says Miriam, are those in denial or not brave enough to defeat their unhealthy ego's resistance. I am so with you on that one. The kind of work that I do, helping people get into the media and break out of their home country to go global, means they've got to be willing to show up and do the work. Some of that's internal work, and no shame there, because we all have got to like clean up, shine some light on the shadow, practice some self-love. But then we have to be willing to step up and be accountable. So for me, if someone is not willing to really be accountable to themselves and to the process, then it's a no-go for me. It's a no-go. So being very clear about who the bad apples are is going to help you, because then you can look for a winning combination. So on your worksheet, just make a list. And again, if you can think of actual people that you've worked with, then later today, do this exercise. If you can remember, oh yeah, that person that I worked with, 2 years ago, just go back in your mind and think of all the reasons why. Why was it a joy for you? Why did they get such good results? What was it about them, like their mindset, their attitude, their beliefs? What was it about the process? They were fully engaged, they had enough money, they were paying attention, and obviously they needed to be a good fit in terms of the types of results that you deliver, but we're going to say that that's an obvious. So make a list so that you can be really clear, because when it comes time for the marketing, you're going to want to refer to this list. Make sense? So on the worksheet, you'll see that you can start to fill in these demographics, the psychographics, and the behaviors. So the first one is, my client is years old. So what is the average age of your client? Now, I know for some of you, you probably will have a range, but when we get to the section where we start to write your avatar profile, I want you to just pick one person. And there's a reason for this. It's because you're practicing. You don't become an expert marketer, an expert, salesperson for yourself overnight. It requires practice. At least I don't know anyone who's been an expert overnight. It certainly wasn't the case for me. So the more that you practice it, the better. And the more specific you can be when we create your first avatar profile, then you can duplicate it if you have multiples, right? So if we had someone on deep dive number 1 who works with 2 groups of women who are in menopause and women who are struggling with their menstrual cycles. So she's going to talk to each of these audiences different. So you'd really want to create an avatar profile that's completely different. So what is the ideal client's age? Is your ideal client male or female? Yes, it may be true that you can help both, but really go back to the heart. Like, who would you be excited to get up and work with? All right. And if it is a couple, that's fine. You can state that. What sort of earning power do they have? How much do they earn per year? And what's their job title? Like, write it down. Even though, of course, you're going to have people with multiple different job titles. Just start to hone in so that when you pick one, for example, if you knew it was a self-employed person, an entrepreneur, or you knew it was a pregnant female, well, what is her job title? Was she previously working and now she's on, preparing for the delivery of that baby? Or was she a stay-at-home mom? You're going to speak to those women very differently. And if you don't, you run the risk of kind of offending them because you're not really connecting with them. You're too generic. So what level of education does your ideal client have? Is it important? It may or may not be, but is it important that your ideal client graduated from high school or had some college? Maybe they didn't get a degree, but at least they had some college. Write that down. What sort of hobbies do they have? This is going to help you start figuring out where they hang out online so that if you wanted to grow your audience organically even if you were paying for ads, you'd want to know where they hang out. What are their hobbies? What are their interests? What groups do they hang out in? And if your client does have children, list the ages and the genders of those kids. All right? So does that resonate with you all pretty well? Do you get it? Yes? No? Maybe so? All right. So hopefully that's made a little bit of sense and helped you get a little bit of clarity on some of the things, some of the aspects that you want to be able to hone in on. Yeah? All right. So I'm going to pop back over to the chat and see what you all have been talking about so far. All right. You are chiming in on some of the good apples. Yes. So Anna says, good apples, the ones that are ready. So Anna, you're going to want to start to think of, how do you know they're ready? How do they know they're ready? As a person who's studied all sorts of psychology, there's this whole concept of being ready for change. So what does that mean? And Anna, as you're writing that down, what sort of hints, would a person feel inside of themselves or recognize that they are ready? And what sort of hints would you pick up on to know, oh, this is definitely my ideal client. They are really ready. Does that make sense? All right, so Jen says, the ones to fire are the ones who ignore recommendations or want you to do their work. Jen, I am so with you. I eliminated in my business, actually, the done-for-you services. I don't like to do other people's work anymore. Those days are gone. I like to work with my clients, but if they're not willing to do the work, it's next to impossible. So I love that. And Raj says, good apples are self-motivated, ready to do the hard work, willing to face hard truths. I like that. They're accountable, they show up, they keep appointments, high on integrity, and payment on time. Amen to that. Very good. Those are very, very clear. Like, do you see now? If someone were previously saying, oh, but I can help everyone, my coaching method is... No, you don't want to help everyone. You want to help the ones that you can actually bring success to and actually get paid. Unless I don't see Rockefeller after anybody's name or, I kid. All right. So Monica says, someone who is not willing to let go of control, and also coming down to a matter of trust. Absolutely. And some of the bad apples for Raj, not being motivated, wanting you to solve everything, victim mentality, overly clingy, denial mentality, aggressive nature, and those who do not apologize. Yes, these are very good. So I'm so glad that this is really helping and you're getting this kind of clarity. Awesome. So Miriam, you say you get it, but you're not sure where you can execute on it. Just tell me what you mean. All right, so when you're looking at your ideal customer, can it be both sexes or genders? Absolutely. If you really do have a product or a service, you're an inspirational speaker like 𝐒𝐏, is it true that you can hit men and women? Absolutely. If your message would resonate with them. Because to be honest, most women are listening through a different sort of ear. And I know I'm not supposed to generalize, but it depends on your product. In your case, 𝐒𝐏, I think you probably can, based on what you're up to. All right, so let's see. Monica says she just realized that my target market is younger than I thought. That is good to know. And you know why that's good to know? Because it helps you also choose where you're going to be. Maybe depending on the age, maybe your target market is on TikTok. All right, so a few more of you. Lena has said that bad apples are the ones that think they know better and they're not open to any pointers. Yes, absolutely. So yes, we look at our own values to see if people are aligned with us. Because if they're not, you don't want to work with them. In that case, what I say is, if someone isn't a really good fit for me and I can tell based on my energy or my personality, because I'm not perfect. Listen, with all the praying and meditation retreats, and I go up to the mountains, to my meditation center several times a year, I'm not perfect. I'm still working through my stuff. And I've recognized very early on that because I'm a visionary and I see things, I see energy, I see potential, I see visions of how things can get done. I noticed very early on in my career that I could sometimes get really angry and frustrated when people weren't living up to their potential. Now, I know that sounds terribly judgmental. Okay, this was in my early 30s, but I was like, dude, this is what you said you wanted. I'm like here with you. And I recognize now that frustration, it's much better now. Now I accept people for where they are. But I also know that if I'm going to give my energy and my time, I want it to be a good alignment, because the type of work that I do, I spend time with people. Many of them come to my home or they come to my hometown. I do events around the world and my daughter is there, my family's with me. So I really want to make sure that the people around me have a good energy. So if it turns out that is not a good energy fit, then I just direct them to either an online training or one of my books or my other programs, because I still want to help people. But for this to be sustainable, like, we all have to be looking after ourselves. Does that make sense? Am I losing people now? Like, oh, Andrea, what? Awesome. Okay. So you guys are really doing great. And Raj, I'm so glad to know that this is super, super helpful. And you thought that you'd be able to help everyone because your belief is we're all the same, we're all equal. Maybe on a soul level, but on the earth level, yes, alignment matters so much. Absolutely. Okay, so good. So I'm glad that you guys are in alignment with me on that one, and you don't think I'm just awful. So here you go. So getting back to our worksheet then, here's what I want you to do next. I want you to think about and write down, what are the goals that your client has? Like, literally, what are their desires, their goals? And you'll see on the worksheet that it says, right now, my ideal client wants to be. So what do they want to be? They want to be happy. They want to be stress-free. They want to be successful. If you're watching on my platform, on the Deep Dive platform, there's a button. You might have to refresh the page. There's a button at the top to download the worksheet. It's also in the chat on Facebook and on YouTube, so someone else can copy paste so that Jen can grab that worksheet. So when you talk about your client's goals, I want you to write them down. Don't leave it in your head, because that's not helping anyone. We've got to get it out so that it can be massaged and worked and put out to the world to start attracting your ideal clients, okay? So right now, my ideal client, they want to be what? Right now, my ideal client wants to have what? Maybe they want to have $1,500 in the bank, every month through passive income. Maybe they want to have more time to connect with their spouse or their family. What is their goal according to them? So I'm going to stress this probably about 500 times, so just get ready. You really want to be dialing into what they want and use their words, because a lot of us can be so high-minded and be all experty in our jargon, and it doesn't land with them. And this was what I was guilty of. Very early in my career, I felt like I had to be a little know-it-all. I had my own drama because I was the youngest of 3 siblings. I was always called the baby. Oh, you're the baby. So I always felt like I had to prove that I knew enough and I was smart enough and good enough. Exhausting. Perfectionism, imposter syndrome, all of that. But it went beyond childhood. And then when I got into medical school, I was at one of the top research institutions for medical school. And there was this intense pressure to always know everything, or they were going to break you down. And so when I got to Discovery Channel and they hired me as the medical director, and I thought, oh, great, I'm going to be on TV doing the things that I love. The head of programming was like, you look too young. No one's going to believe you're a doctor. And I'm like, gosh. So I was always trying to get that acceptance and that validation and prove. And so I tended to err on the side of always having all my facts researched. Now that's a good thing. But, we were talking about presentations, right? I think it was Crystal who was talking about presentations. She helps, female executives get better in their clear, comprehensible presentations. Well, mine were clear. They were just overpacked with information because I was trying to prove I'm smart enough, I know enough. Oh my gosh, it was never ending. But I eventually realized, and it was actually an accident that I realized this. When I left, after a few times of being on Oprah I started being on other networks, and I felt a little more free. Did something with the Travel Channel and TLC, and then doing all these other networks. I started to be a little bit more myself, but I still felt like I've got to stay in my lane. I've got to prove I'm this smart doctor. But when I got my next big TV thing, I produced a 4-part documentary series that followed my pregnancy. Now, at the time that I got this TV deal, I wasn't pregnant. So we were in the negotiations for this big deal. And by the time everything was inked and signed, if you know anything about the entertainment industry, it takes forever. And it was only about 4 months later. But after I signed this deal and I was in New York sitting with the executives for this TV show, this series, they were like, so we're thinking, it'll be, 2 hours of television. What do you think you'd like to do? Is it going to just be a documentary? And we were thinking about all these things. And the deal was already signed, so I knew I was safe. And I was like, well, I need to tell you something. Whatever we decide to do, you need to know I'm pregnant. And it was weird because the president of the network was there and the producers were there and they just got silent. And I'm like, oh, snap. I thought I was safe because I've already signed the deal. They can't back out. And they looked at each other and then they looked at me and they said, oh, could we follow your pregnancy? Like we can follow you as this, healer extraordinaire at your wellness center, but also you as you're going through your pregnancy. And I was like, oh, I hadn't thought of becoming a reality TV person, but yeah, we can do that. And Margareta, you'll love this. This was at a time when I was I don't know if everyone experiences this, but I had a short window during my pregnancy where I was like, oh, it's a gift from God. I didn't know I was even going to have a child in this life. I was already in my 30s. I was just about to turn 35. And so I was in this sort of hormonal bliss that I was like, yes, me and my little gift from God, my baby, yes, we'll do this TV show. And and Shelley says, this was me as a young attorney. It's exhausting, but the effects are long lasting. So that's where I was. I was in this bubble, Shelley, and I was feeling all happy with it at the time. And so I said yes. I said yes to these people. And in the beginning, it was fine. We shot these scenes and we did these stories about pregnancy and about wellness. It was really, really wonderful until. Now, for some of you, you know that Sienna's birthday is in May. So in DC, where it's hot, sticky, and humid, by April, I was just like, oh my God. I felt so fat. I felt so heavy. I felt so sticky. I was like done. And so that sometimes the producers would show up and I'm like trying to put on my old happy face, like I have to be perfect. I had been living that way for so long. But it was one day, I was so worn down, exhausted. I was just like, oh my God. And I just admitted to one of the producers, like, this is really what I'm feeling today. And of course, they're like, roll camera. Because it was like this real moment. But what was interesting, what came out of that, and the point of this whole story, is that I heard from people who had known me for years, who saw that TV show, and they came up to me and they said, there's one particular woman in particular, she was like, wow, girl, I never thought you were just like us. You just regular. I'm not doing the accent very well, but they were able to see my humanity. Instead of trying to be all perfect, it was that TV show that was so pivotal for me. Now, it took years till I got to where I am today, where I'm comfortable being the real me. But the reason I keep saying this to you over and over again is when you can speak like your ideal client, when you can use the words that they use instead of all of your high-minded jargon like I did, that's when true connection takes place. Does that make sense? All right, so looking on the worksheet now, your ideal client has some goals. So write down what they want to be, what they want to have, or what they want to get rid of. They want to get rid of that excess weight. They want to get rid of their pain. They want to get rid of their insomnia. They want to get rid of their excuses. If you're a mindset coach, write down the goals of what they would say, not you, what they would say. And then the next thing on the worksheet is my ideal client has the following problems. What are the problems that they have? Right now, they want to have something. So if it's a lack, what is something that they are lacking that they want to have? Maybe they want more time. Maybe they want to have more money. They want a love partner in their life. Maybe they want a baby. Maybe they want to get fit. What are the problems that they currently have of lack, such that they want to achieve something? Or on the other side, what is something that they want to get rid of? So those are easy for you probably, right? So write those down. Write down what the problems are. And now from worksheet number 1, where we went through the RSVP method, we were looking specifically at the problems that you solve. So the next thing in creating your customer profile, I want you to list the problems that you solve that your client also has. Okay, so the problems and the problems that you solve and the solutions you provide from that RSVP worksheet. Make sense? Write those down. What are the problems that you solve that actually match up with problems that your ideal customer has? Next up, you're going to write down how long these problems have been going on. How long? Years, weeks, months? The next thing you're going to write is, what are the things that are blocking them? What blocks them from achieving their goals or for overcoming their problems? So there's several different categories. What in their personal life is blocking them? So if you're looking at your ideal client, think about it from their perspective. Now you may be able to start using some of your expertise here. Like, what do I really know is blocking them, whether they know it or not? They might be blocked by fear, doubt, a lack of concentration. Maybe, as we talked about in Deep Dive 1, they may have some unresolved issues, some past trauma or drama that hasn't been addressed and healed. So what are personal things that's blocking them from achieving their goals or overcoming their problems? The next one down, what is it about their experience level or their educational level that's hindering them? So what's blocking them from getting results that may be related to their experience or education? Right? So maybe they're dyslexic. So that affects their experience of learning, for example. You really want to think about it. It may be that just they're inexperienced in a particular area, and that's what blocks them. For example, I lead a workshop here in France called Speak from the Heart, and some of you have been both to England for when we first launched it in London. Now we teach it in France. And sometimes what's blocking people's progress with becoming a public speaker is they just don't have the experience. They say it's this fear, but that fear can get replaced the more that you practice. And so inexperience may be one of the things that's blocking them. All right, so let's see what some of you have said. So Shelley says, some of your ideal clients' goals are to be my old self again and be free from my disease or disability. They want joy, fun, and vitality. They want to get rid of feelings of isolation, frustration, and hopelessness. That's excellent, Shelley. So these are key words. So the reason that it's so good that you're writing it down is because when you start to blog or vlog or do any other kinds of posts, or maybe even videos, you can lead with that. In other words, you can lead with this hey, have you been feeling isolated? I know what that's like. And then you go into sort of this storytelling sequence. We'll get there in a minute. So good, excellent. So Joanna says the problems of her ideal clients is misunderstanding their pets, worrying about their health, not understanding technical language, they see their pet is suffering and they feel desperate because no other veterinarian gets them. Excellent. So do you see how that kind of clarity means that she can then speak to those issues in a way that people are going to be like, oh my God, you finally found someone who gets me. Again, this is the reason that we do all of this painstaking. I hope it's not too painful. I hope it's helping you and that you're working through the pain. When you get this stuff out, I promise you, it's going to be so much easier for you to do marketing and attracting the kind of people. So back to the worksheet. What is it about your ideal client's financial situation that prevents them from reaching their goal or overcoming their problem? It could be that they're in debt, they're out of work. Maybe they just live in a high lifestyle where it's more expensive than their actual income. Maybe they're a shopaholic. So is there something about their finances that's perpetuating their problem or preventing them from solving that problem? It's not all about money, but we need to be aware of the mindset that our ideal client might have. The next one down is about their emotional situation. Is there something about their emotional situation? So this is kind of like the personal one that we mentioned earlier, but now you can really get even more into the emotions of it, the lack of confidence, depression, fear of success, fear of failure, all of those sorts of things. So excellent. All right, so Margareta says, your ideal client has a lot of fear of birth, fear of the pain of birth. They don't trust the hospital system or doctors. They have limiting beliefs about their capabilities of birthing their baby naturally. Absolutely. That is so good that you can put that into words, because now you can talk about it in all of your blogs and your videos like you did on Insta Live. And congratulations. Oops, bumping my microphone. Congratulations to you. Brava. Margareta shared some happy news from somebody that she was able to work with virtually as a doula. And even though most people would think, gosh, I need to be there for the birth, I need to be there to coach and provide that warmth and that love, and now you've shown that you can do it virtually. So that's awesome. But yeah, there are going to be people, especially after this coronavirus epidemic, there are a lot of people who don't trust the healthcare system or the doctors or the hospital system. There are a lot of people who have limiting beliefs, like Margareta said, like people who think, wait, you mean doesn't everybody get an epidural? Doesn't everybody like scream and have to push when they're delivering a child? Like there's all these beliefs. So Margareta, it's going to be important for you to address those in your posts and in your blogs and in your interviews, because you're educating people about a whole new paradigm. And that's okay. We talked about this in our personal branding bootcamp with Isabella, who does myofascial release. She's this amazing energy and physical therapist. It can sound daunting that we have to educate people, but you're going to attract so many people to you when you do start to educate them about what's possible, particularly if it's an alternative to the system that's broken. And this is from a physician, a licensed medical doctor and acupuncturist. All right, so let me get off my soapbox. This ain't about me, this is about you. All right, so Lena, hey. Hi. She says, my ideal client wants to have success in a new job without stumbling and failing, if there's inadequate onboarding support, and without losing the feeling of being able to be me, to fit in and make it work. That is so clear. You're an expert at this. I already know that, Lena, but that's so clear because those are probably fears that a lot of people don't mention. Like when they get a new job, they're kind of like, yay, I got a job. And everyone's like, congratulating them. But those are hidden fears that may not be readily obvious. So I would definitely push on those. And Jen says, I can sometimes feel sorry for them with no money. What is your take on that? Do you mean like people who can't afford your services, Jen, that you feel sorry for them? And the question is, what do you do based on that? Are you saying that you feel sorry for them so you give your services away for free? Type in the chat, let me know what the rest of the question is. Sorry, someone wants to join the broadcast. Say hello to Lusa. Yes, Lusa. She does not like me to be talking to anyone without her. So Jen says yes. Jen, you give away your services because you feel like You feel bad that they can't afford it. Okay, so there are two ways that I approach that. One is, of course, I pray that you are a compassionate, loving person and you want to ease the suffering of people that you see. And that is a beautiful motivation. Two, well, you've already said it. You give away your services for free and then you end up working harder. Okay, so then here's question number two. It's wonderful to have that motivation of compassion. I'm right there with you. And you're a human. You're not a robot. And I don't see, this is my stupid joke. My daughter's going to tell me to stop. I don't see Rockefeller after your name. So in other words, if you are not independently wealthy, if you're not running a charity, if you're not fully funded by someone, then you probably are still working to earn money, which means you've got to take care of yourself, your business, and quite possibly a family. So that means we've got to strike a balance and recognize that that compassion that you have to take action doesn't always have to be in the form of you serving them with your time and your effort. You can do it, but in a balanced way. Gosh, I could go on this off on this for a while, but part of the bad apple exercise, like looking at the types of people you can help, I would ask you this, Jen. When you have given your services away for free, what have been the results? Do people get better? And then they're like, thank you. Well, first of all, you should kind of tell us what you do. Do they say, oh, thank you so much. Look at me. My life is amazing. I'm going to send all my friends and family to you now. Or have you ever, as I have, given away your services for free, worked really hard because you really believed that they deserved it and you wanted to see them get well, and they either flaked out, didn't follow through, dropped the ball, had more excuses, and just stopped? And Jen says it goes on and on forever. Right. So I would say that that is the kind of bad apple. Now, does that mean that what do you do with all that compassion? Well, you need to get to a point where you can give away things for free without any expectation of anything in return, which also means you have to have enough of the good apples to cover you. So people will ask me, okay, first of all, why am I here on a Sunday and doing this 6 days straight completely for free? One is the coronavirus epidemic, and I recognize people are suffering. I know that the knowledge that I have, the training that I give, and sometimes it's just the inspirational pep talks, I know these can help people right now during this crazy pandemic. I know it because when I first started doing the free meditations, I was getting so many emails of gratitude. And then when people got to this point where they're like really freaked out, like, how do I make money? And I know how to do that. My heart of compassion says I have to give. And yes, there are certain things like my boot camp, we drastically cut the price down to $44. And you get lifetime access and group coaching with me. And I don't price my services by the hour, but if you were to kind of figure out, my hourly rate is somewhere between $500 and $600 an hour. But you can't hire me that way. There's no way. I don't do hourlies. But that's what it amounts to. So to give all of this time, I just do it out of compassion. I know that some people are not going to take action, even though I made all these worksheets and even though I'm like trying to pep you up. But I also know that these are planting seeds. And so if I can give without any expectation of return right now, just knowing that I'm doing good for my own karma, I'm planting seeds, and great. And I reserve my energy and my time so that I can satisfy the paying clients who are paying me good money. I'm there to be their accountability partner and to support them. And yes, I'm the single parent to my teenage daughter and have to deal with this little bundle of love who always wants to be on my lap during broadcasts. So if my energy is shot, and you guys know this, if my energy is shot, I'm grumpy around my daughter and she picks up on that. And then the whole energy is thrown off in the household. And if I'm tired, then
Why you're talking about me?
if I'm she does not like me to talk about her. If I'm tired, then my paying clients don't get what they have actually paid for. And then I also don't have the time for my fun. So I'm saying all of that to say, Jen, that it's about balance. If you really feel that compassion for them, then send them energy, send them love, practice the compassion meditation series, because we can heal and we can do a lot of good work just with our energy and intention. And on the other side of it, Again, I don't know if you've written here yet what sort of services you do, but you can offer other things for free besides your time and energy. Now, when you actually have a surplus of energy because you've been taking such good care of yourself and you're overflowing, that's what I do. I give from the overflow. And that way I don't have to worry about if they're going to follow through or not. And for my own personality and my own sanity, I can just say, okay, I've done what I could. I pray that everybody follows through and anyway, okay. So maybe that's enough of that. So I'm glad that you found the bad apples exercise to be helpful. And yes, you just need enough of the good apples. And I feel like your auntie right now. Okay, good. Well, I hope you like your auntie. All right, so Tammy says, I was thinking of having a business as a charity so I can give the service for free. Thoughts? Okay, well, I have been working with that same person I mentioned earlier in this deep dive, Derry Llewellyn Davies, who's been an advisor to companies and executive boards and charities. And charities require money. So the question for you, Tammy, is where's that money coming from? If you're going to create a business and then find sponsors or donors such that you can operate freely, I would say that's awesome. It's very, very difficult. We found that people who run hospitals and other charities like that, finding people to donate so that they can keep doing those things for free is difficult. But absolutely, you can set up a business as a charity as long as you can get it funded. All right, and so Raj says, you've given away services for free because you felt that you could help them and you didn't have a legit business, so it felt weird taking money. Okay, well, start a business. Like, this is something that somebody brought up in Deep Dive 1 about what if you don't have a product? What if you're just starting out? I invite you to also kind of think through, if people are regularly coming to you because you're like the queen or king of problem solving and they can always get good advice or they always feel inspired, you might want to consider making it a business. And even though it comes naturally to you, and for some people it does feel weird taking money, there are many different ways you can set up your business. You could do it through Patreon and get donations. There's a whole nother level of training that we can do about that. All right, so I need to get through these comments so that we can get to the next section. All right, so do you pronounce your name Katie? Thank you for your email. I saw that. It's difficult to find the right niche. You've helped people with their health, relationship, and money issues. So that's true for a lot of people. So my recommendation is that you see if there is a red thread. Is there something that ties all of it together for you? So like for me, I'm helping people with self-love and resilience and addiction. And if I tried to list out every little thing that I can do or could do, we'd be here forever. So instead, kind of look and see if there's one red thread. And if there is, then what do those clients have in common? Is there something in particular that you can say about them that ties it all together for you? Does that make sense? So in particular, it would be interesting to see with you, Katie, because you said in your message to me before that you healed yourself from cancer and back pain. So ride the waves of a new life, cancer-free. Like, that is really a clear value proposition and slogan all in one. And that seems like if you really focused on just that, that would keep you busy. You wrote, I empower women with breast cancer to live cancer-free by following their intuition. But you also have holistic ways to overcome physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual limitations. So yeah, you're already on the right track. I would focus in on this first element that you have until it's developed. So you mentioned that you have started you've developed a 7-step program to overcome cancer. I would really hone in on that, get your presence established online so strongly that you become known for that. And then if that 7-step program can work in other areas of life, like you're saying that it can overcome physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual limitations and difficult life circumstances, well, boom, that would be what I would do. So for example, in this book, the Real Self-Love Handbook, the 5-step process, the cornerstone process that's part of that book, that is something that I developed while I was working with people who had addiction and eating disorders. So it was very focused on trauma. And once I sort of perfected it in that space, and then had my own sort of spiritual awakening, I realized, wow, these 5 steps, anyone could go through this to build resilience, to really liberate their authentic self, and to then go on and live an epic life. So once you hone in on the sweet spot of what you have to offer, and it has to be satisfying a real need in the marketplace. And I can tell you, obviously, with cancer, you have a winning, unfortunately, that sounds awful, but you do have a winning niche. You know that there's people out there suffering with that condition. So if you have a way to help them, I would say absolutely do that. All right? All right, so let me check in and see if there's anything else. So you guys are doing the worksheet, you're writing in your book, you've made it clear about the bad apples, you tried to ignore it, but made it clear. Okay, I'm so glad I have made it clear that you can give from the overflow. And yes, Alex, well, whether you like it or not, this is also, a way for people to get to know me. Like before you hire me, you got to kind of know what you're going to get. So this transparency is just the way it is right now. All right. So let's see. Let's see if there's other questions. All right. Shelley has written in, many of my ideal clients are frequently looking for care that's reimbursable by insurance. They only want to pay the copay or invest minimally in their care, especially if it's not coming from an MD, although they spend a lot of money on supplements and ineffective care. They don't realize how conditioned they are to believe that Western healthcare model is the only legit system. I know. So you're going to have to fix that. But the reality is, you might want to widen. Well, I would say that that's a bad apple, Shelley. I would say that your wording could be investigated. You wrote, many of my clients, my ideal clients, are frequently looking for care that's reimbursable by insurance and they only want to pay a copay. Then I would say, why are you saying that's your ideal client? To me, that sounds like a bad apple. The type of functional medicine coaching and the spiritual surrender stuff that you do, Shelley, there are enough people suffering who will pay. Why would you focus on the ones who don't want to pay? Those are your bad apples. Those are the ones that drain you. And if they have been conditioned, you need to go for the already converted. I said this to Isabella in our personal branding bootcamp. Anna is asking about that. I will pop it into the chat. I will try anyway. The personal branding bootcamp is a 10-day bootcamp with video modules. Some of the worksheets that you're seeing during these deep dives, or at least these 2 days of deep dives, come from the personal branding bootcamp. You do these 10 days, you get your brand identified, and then we meet live on Zoom. It's private, it's not out here in cyberspace. And I coach you. You get feedback from me and a global community. And I do these live Q&As every month for the life of, I guess, my life until I retire. I don't know, 10 more years. So it's a huge bargain. I've already said, like, my rates are $500-600 an hour. And for $44, you can have me every single month needling at you. So in the boot camp, we were talking about this idea of, I think it was Isabella in Chicago saying, oh, it feels like this big task. I'm going to have to educate the world about what's possible, and actually you don't. Because Shelley, I know you're already in the world of functional medicine. There are so many millions of people who understand and recognize that traditional or the Western healthcare system is not the be-all end-all. So you want to go for the people who already get that, or are just needing a little bit of nudging over that line. And the only reason I'm saying this, and this is true for all of you, as you really think about the work that you're here to do on the planet, are you here to take on some big, massive system? Margareta in Italy has said, I'll take it on. I'm going to educate people about natural childbirth and hypnobirthing and what's really possible for women and for mom and baby and family. She's taking on that mission. But we each need to come to terms with how big a mission do I want to take on? And I would say that depends on you and your energy. So when you're really looking at identifying that target audience, really think about yourself first. What is going to light you up? What is going to get you in such a state of flow that you're earning money, you feel good about charging, you feel good about receiving, and then you can give from the overflow. And if you focused on the people who are ready, then all of the content that you create, all of the good that you put out in the world, it's going to teach the other people, because they're going to be like, wait, what? You didn't go to a conventional, wait, you have a health coach? Like, how does that work? And when people start to see the results, I mean, go back to your value proposition. What is it going to be worth to them? Are they going to be lowering their bills because they're no longer on medications? Are they going to be getting out of pain? Are they going to save their marriage, save their kids? Start really thinking about that, right? So Katie, tell me if I'm pronouncing your name right. Do you say Katie or Katie or Kati? How would you find the people who believe that it's possible to heal themselves? Okay, so let's move on in the worksheet, and I think we'll get to that. How would you find those people? So the question is, right now, how are you finding your clients? We bring this up all the time, that the best way for anyone to acquire new clients is probably word of mouth. When people have a great result working with you and they can tell other people, or you can put it on your website, word of mouth is great. Second in line is advertising, like good old straight up advertising, paying to get your ads in front of your ideal customer. That's just the reality of it. But for most people, most of us, we're starting off with organic. You want to start to grow your audience. And so when I'm asking you on this ideal client profile sheet, what are their hobbies? Where do they hang out? What are their interests? You've got to get really specific about your ideal client. So if your ideal client, are they on Facebook? Are they in any of these alternative medicine groups or pain groups? So people hang out online in groups, or they frequent certain websites. So you might want to make sure that your ads are on the kind of websites that they visit. By creating more content that can attract them, for most of us, I know not all of us are in healthcare, but if you're in health or spirituality or psychology, some sort of coaching realm, then your ideal clients are getting the majority of their education online, which means you need to be putting out content so that you can be found online, and eventually appearing on other people's blogs or in their magazines or on their radio shows or on their podcasts. And when you do this work, it's like that CNN story that I just told about how I got this client who saw me on CNN, even though I wasn't talking about her disease process. When you can really know how to speak in a way that resonates with them, people will come to you. All right? Specific dates for the boot camp. The boot camp is always open, but I run the 10-day kickstart. It's like an intensive every so often. So you can start today, really get through this work, and then our next live Q&A is in May, and I do it every month. So it's awesome. It's one of the ways that I give, and you can have access to me reviewing your website or the things that you're writing and or the ads or the freebies. You're trying to write books and all these sorts of things. So it is a wonderful way to get my support. All right, so we're going to go back to this worksheet. Now, we asked what was blocking people. The next question you want to answer is, what are the consequences of your ideal client not reaching their goals? Like, what is the tangible downside for them? So the way their current problem affects their personal life. How does having this problem affect their personal life? So is it causing them to get in more fights, or they're having relational strife, marital strife? I don't know why that. Anyway, how is it affecting them personally? Maybe they're shut down and now they're not going out and socializing. How does their current problem affect them financially? So really think about the consequences, because when we start thinking about what is it worth to them, Shelley, to your point, yeah, there are going to be people who really only want to pay for health services that are covered by insurance. But when you start to switch to the people who are willing to pay, and you ask them, we said this yesterday, ask them or go through the numbers of all the things that that their disease process or their problem has cost them. Lost productivity, lost financial gain, a loss in their relationships, a lost sense of fulfillment and joy. And yes, financially, they may have paid this doctor, this diagnostic, like the list goes on and on and on, right? And so you got to think about that consequence, because when it comes down to someone choosing to work with you, you can list that as a benefit. Like, all the thousands of dollars you've already spent trying to solve this problem, we can do. Or rather than getting all of the side effects that the current treatment is suggesting, which is also costly, and then you're on it for life, what if we got you out of that? What would that value be to you? And so it's really important for you to really think this through. So what are the consequences of them not solving that problem? The next one on the worksheet is, what would their life be like if they could solve the problem? What would they do if they didn't have that problem or that disease process, whatever it is? So without the problem, they would have more. Write that down. They would have more time, more freedom, more joy, more money, more sex. What would they have more of if they didn't have that problem? What would they have less of? My ideal client would have less pain, arguments, disability, pills. And how would they actually be if their problem went away? If they were able to solve that problem, how would they be? They would be more outgoing, optimistic, active. What would they be more? Or what would they be less? Be less depressed, less crying and clingy, less afraid, less hopeless, less suicidal, less broke. So write those down specifically. So with Isabella and your education online and your distance healing services in the future, or through books or video programs that you're teaching people about the body, they would have more joy, freedom in the body, and happiness, and they'd have less sleepless nights. Exactly. And Margareta, you would help them to be more happy, relaxed moms, enjoying postpartum. Or they could be pregnant women who are actually enjoying their pregnancy and looking forward to birthing their babies. Yes. And that's what happened in my case. When that show started, it was when the TV producers started coming down from New York to Maryland to shoot this documentary series with me. I made a huge shift When I first got pregnant, I went to a regular obstetrician, and it was one of those kind of practices where there's like 4 or 5 docs and you didn't always see the same person. But as I started researching like all the attachment parenting and I started reading about all this stuff, I heard about hypnobirthing. Now, I was already an acupuncturist and practicing meditation, so I was like, really? You can go through childbirth without having an epidural? And then I started learning that, the effects on the baby by having an epidural and all this stuff. And so that got incorporated into this documentary series that I produced. And so everything in my world changed, including this belief that you have to scream and cry and push hard when you're having a baby. You don't. So yes, pregnancy could be something that people actually enjoy. So back on the worksheet, make a list of all the ways that your ideal client has probably tried to solve their problem before. What solutions have they tried in the past? This again is like perfect for your marketing. It's going to be a way that you're going to really connect with people. The beauty of doing this is it's a psychological trick. If there's a marketing saying that says, if I can describe your pain as well as you, then most people will believe that I have the solution to fix it when I actually say, I can help you with that. So the more that you're really able to drill down to what keeps them up at night, what are their frustrations, their pains, what solutions have they tried, what are the consequences of living with this problem and not solving it? When you can do that, you can seriously attract your ideal client without any sneaky, sleazy sales techniques. You just share. You just share from your heart what you've experienced and what you're passionate about fixing. So what are some of the ways that they have tried to fix this problem on their own? Because again, you could blog about it. Hey, are you completely freaked out about the idea of an in-hospital birth? And maybe you've heard that epidurals are kind of like drug the baby and you lose this beautiful bonding time, blah, blah, blah. I'm making it up for you, Margareta. You know it even more detailed than I do. But you can start to speak that way in your blogs, in your writing, on your website, so that people will be able to recognize that you are the one to come to. And the next one is, on this worksheet, the competition. So for those of you that know me, I actually don't believe in competition because I know that there are enough humans on this planet for everyone to get what they need. I just don't. There are a lot of people who do branding, but I don't feel like I need to compete with them because, well, you see me. I'm a special kind of girl. One, not everybody is going to want to work with me. I'm a little bit woo-woo. Two, I only want to work with the people who have their heart in their service, that they're really here to make a difference on this planet. But be that as it is, competition. If you were to say there's competition out there, who are the other experts and authorities out there in the space that are likely already serving your ideal customer? Now, they might already be working with your ideal client, but you have a different opinion. Maybe you consider their style outdated or ineffective, or maybe it's just flat out boring. So make a list of those, because to Katie, you're, I don't think you said in the chat if I'm pronouncing your name correctly. It's kind of a big deal for me because I grew up in Colorado and a lot of people would pronounce my name Andrea. My name is not Andrea. My name is Andrea. So it just happens to be a thing for me. I like to be able to pronounce people's names correctly. So in any case, you really want to be able to think about, where are my ideal clients hanging out? Because if there are other experts out there, you can just learn from them. Like, what are they doing that seems to be attracting people? Of course, if they're sleazy and slimy and they're using that kind of clickbaity stuff, you're not going to emulate that. And what to do if you don't know the competition? Well, then I would think of it this way, Raj. Are there experts out there that you admire? or who might be in the space where you're like, I would really like to be doing that. The only reason I'm asking you to do this is because when you start to speak to your ideal customer through your marketing, through your advertising, or through your sharing, then that's how you're going to really start to hone the way that you speak. So that's the reason. Does that make sense? So my last pronunciation was correct, says Katie. Is it Katie? I don't know what the last one was. All right, so Crystal says they've bought tech that they don't understand or fully utilize. They've invested time without ROI. They've paid for classes, or they've ignored the issue altogether. Exactly. So now, Crystal, that's really clear because you can speak to that. Like, hey, you got a bunch of tech that you buy stuff and then you don't actually figure out how to use it. I mean, that was me for the longest. Those are things that you can speak to. But I'd be curious to know, Crystal, in your world, have you identified what your potential competition looks like? Or are there experts that you admire who are kind of doing what you'd like to be doing? Again, this is just so that you can start doing research to find out how to best connect with your target audience. So Anna, I'm trying to read your comment. So something I feel like, what am I offering? Like what I'm offering is already out there. So why would I be needed? Then you fight the thought. Well, good. Keep fighting the thought. Depending on what you do, Anna, how do you deliver your services? Are you a health coach, a love coach? Are you doing stuff online? Because there are close to 8 billion people on the planet. I don't think there are enough coaches for health or for love to fix everyone. And again, it's about that resonance, you know? Someone who resonates with you might not resonate with these other people out there, you know? So we've really got to be really clear about that. Self-love health coach, right? All right. Honey, there are so many people in need of self-love coaching and health coaching. Are you kidding me? There's more than enough. So, but there's only one of you, and you have a particular energy, a vibe, a way that you will show up in the world that will connect with some people. So I do self-love stuff, but I'm not a fit for everyone. So just because I'm already out there doing it shouldn't discourage you. It shouldn't discourage any of us. Thank you, Crystal. It's Kati. All right. Lovely. Fernando says, patients take medication thinking that it will solve the problem, but they don't realize the importance of changing their lifestyle, which will also have a great impact in their life. Absolutely. So are you seeing that we all have so much work to do and there's so much opportunity? I promise you there is great opportunity. Kati says, I am very empathetic and sensitive. I feel quickly people's needs. This makes me different than the competitors. Absolutely. And that is so valuable. And by you being able to speak that is also going to help people come to you. So it brings up another little short story I'll share with you. Part of my coming out and really just showing up as my authentic self, as I said, it sort of happened over the years. It started with the birth of my daughter. I really decided I just want to be my authentic self. I don't want to be like too prim and proper and trying to be fake or whatever. I want to be the real me so that she sees that being your authentic self is the way to go. Not trying to be, too much of a people pleaser and all of that. And then when I moved here to France and I started going out and speaking on stages, it still wasn't 100% natural to just speak about myself. I would always kind of deflect and talk about other people and other things until I started to kind of let things slip. And I'm actually glad that I did. Because to your point, Kati, for me, I happened to be giving a presentation in Copenhagen, and then, in Copenhagen. And I happened to start talking a little bit about my personal journey and some of my spiritual experiences, including this out-of-body near-death experience that I had. And I was talking about just energy and how I can feel things without people saying anything. And I was like, I caught myself. I was on stage and I kind of caught myself like, oh my gosh, where have I gone? I've gone off into woo-woo land. Let me bring it back. I'm supposed to be focused, talking about personal branding. And it was the strangest thing because when I got off stage, I had this line of people waiting to talk to me. And I'm like, okay, maybe they have branding questions. And there was this woman who had tears coming down her face. And she was like, your story is my story. She's like, but I've just never told anyone. And so I once again learned that just by sharing, not oversharing, I didn't overshare, but for me at the time it was like foreign, by sharing who I am and my experiences, she recognized that it was safe to open up and safe to connect. And that's the gift of what we can do, becoming a personal brand and sharing your truth from your heart. You will start to attract the people who are in your vibe. They resonate with you. And the more that you're able to understand them and speak their words and speak your own truth, it starts to bring people to you. And so as soon as I owned the fact that I am an empath, before, back in the day, it was referred to being a highly sensitive person. And where I grew up in America, that was a negative thing. Oh, you're so sensitive. Oh, you can walk into the room and tell the exact temperature. Like, there was all this negativity around the idea of being a highly sensitive person. We used to have a joke. It's awful. This joke in my family, like, girl, you would cry at a Hallmark commercial. For those of you that don't live in America, Hallmark used to make these beautiful, they still do, these beautiful cards that would be like so emotional. And their commercials on TV were like so well done that in 30 seconds you could have a tear in your eye. Well, that's what it's like when you're, an empathetic person. You can feel the energy and the vibe and the sadness of other people. But for me, I grew up thinking that that was a bad thing. Well, it was kind of heavy for sure. But it was also bad because when I found out that other people didn't have that ability, they started to look at me like I was weird. So I started to downplay that and kind of hide the fact that I could see things, I could feel things, I could hear things. I mean, I'm clairsentient. And recently I connected with one of our global luminaries named Willow McIntosh, who is on a mission, thanks partially to my urging. He is on a mission to help people who have been previously identified as HSP, or even if you haven't been. He is bringing awareness to the world, something that I didn't even know. People who have been labeled HSP, highly sensitive people, there's actually some research that shows that there is a genetic trait, there's a genetic difference in our processing abilities. It's not that we're better than anyone, but it's the way that we process things very deeply. And so we can get emotional with certain inputs. We can feel other people's pain and their energy. Now, all humans are wired for that. Like, we have these mirror neurons. Our gut picks up things. Our heart picks up things. We know things intuitively. But some of us are born kind of with this sensory processing sensitivity, which I believe also gets tweaked for people who've experienced trauma or early childhood experiences like growing up with an alcoholic or an abusive parent or somewhere where there was stress at home. That can turn on your nervous system such that you're always hypervigilant. But what Willow's work is about letting people know that you can come out of hiding if you've been previously named an HSP or an empath, because that sensitivity can actually be your superpower. And so I have urged him when he came through our academy to really take this up as a cause. Like, how mind-blowing would that be for people who've been hiding because of this sensory processing sensitivity and the way that we have been shamed? What if we owned that as our gift and then used those skills? Now, they're not necessarily useful everywhere, but when you find your own lane and you bring your gifts to the world, you can actually step up your leadership potential, which is what really interests him. So I'm saying all of that to say that for me, that was something I hid for a very long time because I was shamed and teased because, oh, you could feel things and see things. You have these dreams and all of that. But after being first in Copenhagen and then in Aarhus, also in Denmark, and then in Alicante, where I met some of the beautiful people who are on, I decided that I would use some of the language of my quote unquote ideal client. So just like you're going through this worksheet, some of the, and for those of you who haven't yet started your business, you might be the best version of your ideal client. So if you think back to when you were in pain, when you were suffering, when you had some challenge. So for me, the biggest challenge of my life was not living as my authentic self. Now, at the time, I didn't have that language. At the time, back when I was in my days at Discovery Channel, I was on TV, I had, the fame, the money, the stuff, but I felt unfulfilled. I would not have used the words self-hatred or, a lack of self-love. That wasn't in my consciousness. But what was in my consciousness was a feeling that I wasn't good enough, feeling like I always had to try to be better, do better, be perfect-er. And yet, even when I did things well or did things right, I didn't feel good. I didn't feel better. It was this unending cycle. And it wasn't until I had that out-of-body experience and left my body, went into the light, had an experience with the divine, it was then that I was able to see, oh my God, of course I'm depressed and miserable. I'm not living as my authentic self. I was hating the fake version of me that I was being. And when I got on that TEDx stage and I shared that out loud, which was a big deal for me, instead of the fear I had at the time was people are going to think I'm a weirdo. I've had an NDE. You've got to be a weirdo, right? Or admitting that I had depression. Oh God, what are people going to think? They're not going to think I'm credible anymore. Like all of those fears were not even real. Because what happened was people came up to me and they said, me too. I've been hiding. I got forced down a career path. Oh, I went to school to do that, that, and that, just like you. So even if there were certain things that were different, by sharing my experience in the real words of what I experienced, they saw themselves in that, and it brought us together. And so what it taught me, especially as I started doing this in smaller stages and workshops, was that I could be my real self, and I could actually help other people who had also been hiding and feeling marginalized and feeling less than. And I could help them bring out their natural traits. And so if you really looked, if you cared to make it a study, and you really looked at my business, Make Your Mark Global, and what we're all about, and the Real Self-Love Movement, and my other company, Innate Vitality, and my fourth company, Diamond Life Design, everything that I'm doing comes down to one thing. It's about connecting you to your authentic self so that you can reactivate your natural resilience, your innate vitality code, so that you can be healthy and wealthy and thrive. So it's all about identity. So all the work I do is about removing those blocks to knowing who you really are, knowing that you are a spiritual being, worthy of love, worthy of success, worthy of being seen and heard. And then with my medical cap and my, psychology, I can help people work through the same things that I work through, the lack of self-love, getting over trauma, all of that sort of stuff. So I didn't mean to go on that sort of a rabbit hole. But once I became really confident in speaking exactly like my ideal client, exactly what these worksheets are meant to help you do, as soon as I started speaking like them, they started coming to me. And I never would have thought, oh, I'm going to go after empaths or the highly sensitive people. It wasn't a conscious choice. But what happened as people started coming to me and I started to work with them, I started to experience success. I was able to help them because I had done it for myself. I mean, not to mention I had done it in my previous career helping people with addiction. So helping people, which I thought was like one of the hardest things, helping people overcome trauma that led to their addiction and eating disorders, that was like the really hard stuff. So when I fast forward to, 2015 and beyond, working with people who are heart-centered, who are wounded healers in some way, and they consider this to be their spiritual destiny, that is what's most fulfilling to me. Is this making sense? Okay, so I'm now going to stop talking. Let me look at your comments here because I know I've missed a lot of them. Is this making sense for you? All right, so Tammy, can a niche be too narrow? So a lot of people will say, narrow your niche, get narrow, narrow, narrow. The answer to your question is this. What is your goal? Are you creating a business that is intended to feed you financially and set you up for retirement? Like, I don't know how old you are. Somebody else wants to be here again. It depends on your goal. So if you were saying that your niche is Black female billionaires, is there anyone else besides Oprah that's a female African-American billionaire? That might be a little tough. But it also depends on what service you're providing. So for me, it might seem very narrow that I only work with healers and light workers and spiritual entrepreneurs. But for what I'm trying to do in my life, there's actually enough, well, especially because that's only one of my 4 companies. So it depends on what you're trying to accomplish. If this has to be your main bread-winning thing, if you can just tell me in the chat, Tammy, what is the business that you're doing? And if this happened yesterday, if you're finding that the stream stops, you may have to refresh the page or pop over to YouTube or Facebook, because I think we are still live. Can I get a yes if you guys can still see and hear me? My software tells me it's still going. So does that make sense? Tell me what it is that you're doing, because it could be that having a narrow niche is perfect. I was working with someone recently and they said, okay, I'm ready to get set up. I'm going to, see clients on this number of days a week and I'm ready to go. And I was like, okay, so how many hours a day are you willing to work? And because sometimes we're in that desperate mode, like, well, I need to take on everything. And I said, well, let's think this through. Like, with what you're charging and what your lifestyle is, are you sure you really want to be working 4 days a week, 6 hours a day? It depends on of course, the type of work that you're providing. But when you start to look at how it all adds up, at Make Your Mark Global, we only work with people who have a niche of at least 1 million people, which is pretty easy if you're in the spiritual psychology or self-help realm. So tell me a little bit more about what you do. All right, so Margareta says, your competition is offering more standard courses. Your ability to tune in and sense what is needed to heal the trauma and go into the emotions that's part of your USP. That's definitely going to be what is unique about coming to you. And so Margareta, you would be able to say that on your website, in the posts, in the videos. You can talk about your own success personally or with other people and really bring that to life for someone such that they're going to be like, whoa, I want to have her help me through this childbirth, right? All right, so yes, and Raj says, you've hid your HSP stuff too. And yes, Kati, it does make you sick when you're not expressing your empathy. And that's why I don't hold myself back anymore. I don't. So Shelley, getting back to your comment, you said that your competition are coaches and healers who can't produce transformative results and are unable or unwilling to go beyond their protocols to personalize their care. Well, that's not competition. That's somebody in a whole different class. And if you really think about the ideal work of personal branding, it's for you to become so unique and distinct, there is no competition. I wouldn't call those people your competition. If they are unwilling to go beyond their protocols, then they're just in a different class. They're people who are stuck in their ways, and you're over here doing things the functional, holistic, spiritually integrated way. They're not your competition. But you can still look at them because they might be attracting people because they're kind of the only game in town for some people until they find you. Yes. All right. Building healthy boundaries. Otherwise, we won't even be able to do any active listening. Yes. Healthy boundaries. Oh my goodness. For an empath, that is crucial, especially now that I do, speaking around the world. I've had to learn my magical shielding techniques because I got smashed and smacked around. I think after the birth of my daughter, it was much more difficult to stop or suppress my intuitive and empathic abilities. And I think for a while there, I was kind of like wide open. And I had this wonderful mentor friend in America named Selena. And I remember calling her going, I feel like I've taken on, I was working at this clinic and I feel like I'd taken on everyone's drama and trauma. I just found myself just crying and sobbing. And she was like, "Oh, honey, I can see it. You've taken on stuff." And she does this magical clearing thing. And I was like, "Okay, I don't know what you're doing, but yes, please get it off of me." And then she told me that I need to shield myself energetically such that I can have a channel going out where I can send compassion and empathy and love, but don't let their stuff come back on me. I can still use my antenna to sense what's going on. I can feel, I can see, I can hear, I can still perceive, but not taking it on. So yes, boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. And so Rossi, you saw Willow McIntosh. Willow also is running a webinar in May, which I'll be sharing about tomorrow. I haven't really been promoting today on this webinar. Sorry, guys. I guess because it's Sunday and I'm just in my zone. Is this helpful for you? I imagine it must be because you're still here with me. Thank you, Miriam. You say it's resonating so much. So familiar with it. It was draining much more than anything when you were a perfectionist. Absolutely. Oh, yes. Yes, yes, yes. So if you all are still here, all right, good. I'm glad you see me, you hear me, spot on. All right. So Tammy says, your niche is women who tried keto and fasting, but they were unsuccessful. No, honey, that is not a small niche. There's still people who are super, super excited about keto. And so I would say that anyone who was willing to go down the route of fasting and keto, even if they didn't get results, they were believers at one point. So, and I think probably you would even attract people who are believers who are maybe getting results, but they're still open to getting even more results. So no, I think your niche is still pretty big. I mean, especially because right now the whole keto phenomenon is such a big hot topic. Depending on the way you deliver your services, or if you're doing online groups and stuff, you're sitting on at least a six-figure, if not multiple six-figure, depending on how you want to deliver, whether you're doing courses, group coaching, books, what have you. All right. Thank you all for being here. It's always a pleasure for me to be able to connect with you all and feel like I'm delivering something of value. Tomorrow, our deep dive is, what is tomorrow's deep dive, my folks, my friends? Tomorrow, we are covering, this is today, yeah? This is us now. Dun, 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 dun. Deep dive number 3 is your intellectual property. So someone mentioned that they had a 7-step process, right? A 7-step process. That is your intellectual property. That's something that you can turn into money, honey. And then our next deep dive after that on Tuesday is how to test, create, and launch a product. So for those of you that have been stuck in what we call analysis paralysis, should I do that? Should I do that? Should I do this? Well, I'm going to help you figure out how you actually choose your product and then test it to see if people would really buy it in the way that you're thinking of selling it. And then showing you a process to launch so that you can launch in less than 30 days. So whether that is a freebie or a course or group coaching, that is what that session is all about. We're going to help you launch a product. Deep dive number 5 on Wednesday is all about how to write and publish a book in 90 days or less. So I hope that you will join me for that if you've been wanting to get a book done and out of you. I've done 13 in the last few years, so this is something I know very well. And then finally on Thursday, deep dive number 6 is how to craft your irresistible offer. So all of the work that you've done in deep dive 1 with the alphabet soup of coming up with how you describe yourself, your brand identity, all the work we're doing today on the target audience, we're going to take all of this and help you craft your offers so that when you're having conversations, it's not going to feel like slimy, sleazy sales. You're going to actually feel good that you're just offering people a solution to solve their problems. So hopefully you will stick around with me for these 6 deep dives. All right, so we are nearing the end of our time together, so I'm going to check in and see if you have any other questions. Finish the rest of this worksheet. This is your homework, is to finish the rest of the worksheet where you can describe your avatar. Now, most of us in this marketing world, we suggest that you literally think of one person. For you that work with couples, it could be a couple, but then go on the internet and go to Google Images and just grab a photo and stick it on a Google Doc or whatever you use, and just start to imagine that that was your ideal client. What would their name be? Go through the full demographics and the psychographics and their beliefs and behaviors, and really give us the specific details. Imagine a day in their life. What are they struggling with? What are their passions? What are their fears? What are they blocked in? And then you're going to write up an avatar profile. And having this customer avatar profile is going to help you so much, because then you're able to see if your wording matches them. You'll be able to see if the images you choose for your website would resonate with them. You'll be able to tell other people exactly who you serve, such that we can instantly go, oh, I know exactly who to refer over to you. All right, so you'll see on this worksheet, all of the things are summarized in the last 3 pages. And then I really want you to put it into action. What are you going to do to take action on what you're learning here? Okay? Does that make sense? I don't want this just to be fun. I mean, I like hanging out with you, but I want you to actually take action, start making money, and start changing some people's lives. So wonderful. Sylvie is offering, or will be offering, Reiki healing to children and women. All right, so that's still a little broad, Sylvie. Let's dial that in. Tell us more specifics about either the conditions that these children have, and the women that you are ideally set up to serve, right? You've got to be a little more clear, because for one, some people don't know what Reiki is. And so if you just walked in and someone says, oh, what do you do? And you say, oh, well, I do Reiki healing for women and children. If I don't know what Reiki is or what it's good for, I'm lost. So then you're relying on that person to either confess, I don't know what that is. What? Wait, what? What is that? And if they do ask, then great, you can start to explain. But don't assume that people are going to get it. You need to be super, super explicit. Okay? All right. Awesome. WOMB, womb. I'm so glad that this has been helpful. Phenomenal hearing my stories and relating to your situations. It's sparking new ways of speaking to those that you can help. Exactly. That is what this is geared up to do. So thank you all for being here. It's Shireen. It's you. WOMB stands for Wonders of My Body. Very clever, darling, especially because I know I mentioned you earlier. I don't know if you were here when I mentioned that you're working with people who are dealing with menopause as well as women who are dealing with menses. So very clever that it's called WOMB, Wonders of My Body. All right. So Raj, you say you're having trouble with niche. Here's your effort. Okay. The common thread. Successful people who need to be better connected with their inner self to get over their blocks and shift things in their lives. Okay, we're getting closer. So successful people, that's good. Now it'd be interesting to know, are they male or female? What are their ages? And how do they get successful? Are these successful executives or what? What makes them successful, right? Are they high achievers? What is it? And they need to be better connected with their inner self. So what you'll see in this exercise is I'm asking you on this sheet to really think of the words that they use. And like I explained, for me, I'm pretty intelligent, but in my 30s, when I was dealing with depression, I don't think I would have said that my problem was I needed to connect with my inner self. I know that now. So we always want to be using the language that our ideal client is using now. Yes, later when I know what it is. I needed to liberate my authentic self. It's the name of my podcast, and it's the tagline of my book. But it would be interesting to know, why are they successful so that they can self-identify? And what are their problems? You say to get over their blocks. Well, what are those blocks? Like, let's be really specific about 2 or 3 blocks that they have. And when you say shift things in their lives, what we want to do is think of, what are the things that need shifting? In other words, what are the pains and the problems that they're dealing with? Is it relationships? Is it finances? Is it a sense of fulfillment? Like it was in my case, I had everything that the American paradigm tells you should make you happy, and I wasn't happy. I had all of this success, but I didn't feel satisfied and I didn't feel fulfilled. So what is it that would need to shift in those successful people? But you're getting closer. The common thread, you're getting there. Yay! The synergy group. Yes, I can talk to you about the synergy group. Yes, I'm so glad, Kati, that this has helped you. You feel like you can move forward. Audrey is asking about the worksheets. They are in the chat. If you didn't sign up for this and get an email from me, then please do. It would be best if you can go to makeyourmarkglobal.com, and you'll see that you can sign up for a whole number of things, but you'll see that you can actually register for this masterclass. So go to my website, makeyourmarkglobal.com, if you haven't already, and that way you'll get emailed all of the replays. And so you can find the worksheets. If you're watching on YouTube, they're there. If you're watching on Facebook, it's in the chat. If you're watching on my pinned site, it should be over there as well. But if not, I will email it to you when I send out the replay. So please sign up so that you're on the email list. You will have to opt in a second time. So it'll email you saying, thank you for registering, or something like that. It'll say you need to confirm your email address, which means you might have to go into your spam folder or your promotions email folder and drag me into your primary inbox, or add Andrea at AndreaPennington.com to your safe or your contacts list, so that my emails show up in your box. And that's where you'll get the replays, the worksheets. You can also send me questions like Kati did. That way I can answer your questions if it wasn't helpful. On makeyourmarkglobal.com, you'll also see that there's information about the Personal Branding Bootcamp, which is the 10-day branding bootcamp that includes several video lessons, more worksheets that you can work through step by step. And in 10 days, you can actually go through the creation of some of the things we've covered in the last 2 deep dives, but it takes you even further into creating freebies, creating your website, messaging, and all of that sort of stuff. And for those of you that are interested, someone asked about the 3-month synergy group. For a limited time, I am offering a 3-month intensive. I mentioned that my normal working structure for mentoring, working privately with people, is through the Global Luminary Academy, which is a 12-month private mentoring program where you have access to me personally via Skype or Zoom, and you get access to every single one of my trainings. So you can come live to all of my workshops in America or Europe. You can also get all of my online training, and it's the only way that I work with people one-on-one. It's in my 12-month academy. But because it is this crazy pandemic, and there are so many people who would benefit from not just doing the DIY course, like the Authentic Personal Branding Bootcamp, you can do it on your own. We do have a group. We meet every single month for a live Q&A. But if you need some more support and you want my help to really refine and get you launched, I'm doing a 3-month synergy. I don't know that I have a really clever, easy way to give you that website, but I'm going to put it on the screen if I can. You can see, as soon as I find it, you can see what my current offerings are, and I'd be happy to talk to you about that. So it's 3 months. It's starting in May. So right after we finish these 6 deep dives, I'll be having my private sessions with people in the new 3-month synergy. We've already got one group that I think is full. We're going to probably do 2 or 3 different groups because I have people in different countries and different time zones. So with that, you get personal sessions with me where I can really go deep and use all of my woo-woo HSP techniques to figure out and dial into your soul and your mission. And then together we will decide, what is your focus for this 3 months? Are you trying to get a book done, launch a brand, launch a course, create a new membership, whatever it is? We really hone in and focus, and then you get all of my blueprints and the step-by-step guidance to get it done. But you also still get the group effect. So in these synergy groups, I'll be pairing people up in groups of between 5 and 8 so that you have accountability partners. You can see what other people are doing, because you may be at the stage where you're not doing ads yet, but then you get to see a couple other people as they're testing ads and they're running freebies or challenges. So I found that with my academy, with the 12-month Global Luminary Academy, our luminaries get together and then they end up doing partnerships and JV things with one another. And it's really a beautiful way to not feel so alone. So if you kind of like my style of all my woo-woo spirituality and forcing you to be the best that you can be, then that might be for you. So the time commitment for the 10-day bootcamp, it's at your own pace. You could literally do an hour a day and make the progress that you need if you just do it. I say that because sometimes people just sit in their head like, I don't know, but I hope you've gotten the experience so far that I just want you to put it out on paper. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm not saying publish this to the world. I'm saying just start to get these worksheets and do it. Like, okay, if I were able to describe my ideal client, who would that be? Because if you do this work, I promise you, things are going to start to get clearer and clearer. You'll either feel it in your body or there'll be some sign from the universe. You'll get someone calling or someone asking and you'll be like, oh my gosh, this is so weird. That synchronicity is there. Like, so that's what the purpose of all of it is. The deadline to sign up for the Synergy, we will be doing the private sessions for the Synergy group the first week of May. So you've got to get in the first week. So basically you've got, probably 10 days. And then depending on how many people we have, I'll close that down so that I can give my undivided attention. And we might do a waiting list. Normally with my academy, I've got a 6-month waiting list. So if it seems like it's a good fit, maybe you get on the wait list for the academy. I don't know if I'll do this 3-month thing again. I'm really just doing it because I know that so many of you are in need. All right, so the boot camp is only $44. And I'm telling you, that is a steal to have me every single month, this global community, and to be able to really go in and meet with us on a monthly basis, besides having lifetime access to all of the training materials. And the good about that is you're going to make some progress this year. And then next year, you may have a new idea, a new program you're launching, or a new book you're writing, and you go back to the boot camp. You use the same material to work out your avatar for that next product, or the wording for your next launch, and it's all there. And then you can tune into me again. Maybe you work with me in the boot camp, and then you come back 6 months later. You join one of our live Q&As that are totally free, live Q&A on Zoom, and then you get some more support. But if you want the one-on-one with me and the group synergy, then you've got probably 10 to 12 days. And How much time do you need? It's not really a daily thing, Raj. It's up to you. Now, I would say if you're trying to write a book, then you're probably going to have to assign some time to it. It's really based on you. There's not, with the 3-month synergy, I tailor it. I have so many different trainings, whether you're trying to do a TED Talk or release a course or do books. So I tailor it to you. So in this 3 months, if you are working to build a brand, then I'm going to tailor the training and the material that you get for that. I would say if you really want to get the most out of it, because you're going to be meeting with me several times as well as with the group, then, oh, so you're asking, could you do this while studying for boards in June? Yeah, I think, what do you want to launch? Tell me that, Raj. What do you want to launch? Where can you find the 3-month program? Okay, my dog is very mad that I did not pick her up. I have not listed it on my website. I've only been sharing it privately. So it's not on makeyourmarkglobal.com. This is going to be a very weird, but that's it. Tammy, I'm so glad that you signed up for boot camp. Awesome. So if you want to find, I'm going to type this into the chat, the online biz offers. I know that's kind of a weird URL, but that's what we came up with. Then you can find out about it, or just email me. I'll email you the link, and we can have a conversation. But the 3-month synergy is $888, so it's $888. Boot camp is $44, and yeah. So what else? So glad that you're going to be joining the boot camp. So Raj, you want to launch your brand and figure out what you can offer that is not medicine. Burnout. Okay, awesome. Yeah, well, you can do that in 3 months. You can do that, especially while studying for the boards. And I would probably put you in the pod that has, well, unless you don't want to be with other doctors. We have some other doctors. We've got a pharmacist, a nurse, critical care nurse. Like, so we've got medical professionals. We also have kind of energy healers. So I'll match you with the kind of persons that would be most beneficial for you and, supportive. So it's a good mix. We have really good energy. If you felt good energy in these 2 hours that we've been spending together and yesterday, then you're in the right place. All right. So are there any other? Yay, Audrey, you've joined the boot camp. Woohoo! Can't wait to see you in there. So the boot camp also has a private Facebook group where you get a lot of support. So every time you're launching something, you can share it there. We will support you and like your posts or give you feedback on stuff. So yes, lots of support for you there. All right. So my friends, you have your worksheet. Hopefully you've signed up for this deep dive so that you'll get the emails. You're right, Kati, today's worksheet was not in the email reminder, but I will get on the replay. You'll get the replay, which is you'll get the replay, you'll get the worksheet, and I'll also include the slides. So the actual slides that were on the screen, I don't put those out on the internet, but I will give them to you if you are signed up officially. So I will also share the link so that you can learn more about the Synergy program or about the Academy, if that's of interest to you. All right? So has this been helpful? Do you feel like you can do this work? You're going to finish this worksheet, and by finishing this worksheet, you're going to be set up so that when we get to the next couple of deep dives, you will be able to effectively speak to your niche. And that is principally what I want you to be able to do. All right? So I mentioned that our next deep dive is all about your intellectual property. That means we're going to figure out how you can create your own signature course. So maybe this is what you need, Raj. It's like figuring out how to take what's in your brain and in your expertise and turn it into a profitable business extension, a signature course, a TED Talk, a group coaching program, some kind of thing that you can duplicate and replicate even when you're not around, or you can train other people to do it as well. And then we move into the next deep dive, number 4, where I'm going to teach you how to choose, test, create, and launch a product in less than 30 days. This is going to help you finally just get off of the indecision bus and just get something out there, because you can always tweak it later. And then we go into deep dive number 5, which is how to write a book. I will give you my 3 keys to write and publish a book in 90 days or less. Now, I know it might be a little difficult if you're studying for boards, but it is possible to write a book in 90 days or less. And then deep dive number 6 is how to craft your irresistible offer. This is so, so important, because I know how many of you hate the idea of sales. But on Thursday, I'm going to give you my script and what I use when I am crafting my sales offers and sales videos and webinars. And it's been hugely, it just shifted everything from me. I learned this from one of my favorite marketers out there, Russell Brunson, and tweaked it for my vibe. And it has worked, and worked for so many of my clients. So I'm going to teach you guys that, which is usually only for my VIPs. All right. So I'm glad that this was good for you. I'm glad that you have found this to be an energy booster. And that's exactly what I was hoping for. And Raj, don't worry. I know how it is when that imposter syndrome starts to creep up. But don't back down, because I know that whatever's in you, that sort of rumbling, there's something in there. And all you need to do is just sort of dust off that flame so that it can not shine brighter and burn brighter, so that we can burn away the doubts and the fears. Because generally what I've found, that imposter syndrome typically creeps up when we're not aligned with our authentic self. Like, you feel like you're an imposter because there's something about what you're doing that's fake. Sienna? Lusa? My dog is really demanding. Elle a vomi. Okay. Anyway, so, sorry, imposter syndrome. Sorry, now my dog is really demanding attention. You do have something to offer, but it's probably not going to necessarily be exactly like everything you've seen. And so sometimes when we feel like, I don't know, who's going to want to take anything from me? I mean, I don't know. Blah, blah, blah. It's because you're comparing yourself to what's already out there. And you're like, well, I'm not that. So of course you're going to feel like an imposter, because that's not you. And, the last little story I'll share, and then I'll shut up. I remember when I was at Discovery Channel, and again, working as their medical director and spokesperson, I had my role. I was overseeing the content, I recruited other doctors to help us create online content. I was doing the news, anchoring the news, and hosting my own show, and doing documentaries. And it was very much in the box. I had a script. I was writing the news anchor stuff, but everything was very much in a confined space. And then I was invited, our friend Rob left, but I was invited to speak at what was then called the MCI Center in Washington, D.C. for this big Women's Heart Day. And I was a keynote speaker talking about my 5 keys for getting heart healthy. Typical doctor stuff. And I mixed in some positive psychology. And after I gave that keynote, I went back to Discovery Channel the next week, and I was writing up a blog post on the 5 keys to getting heart healthy. And some of you have heard this story, forgive me, but I could feel this presence behind me, this woman named Rita, and she was looking over my shoulder. And, talk about perfectionist. I was kind of like, is she checking my HTML? Because I had just learned how to do HTML coding, and, it was like you had to get all the tags right and all this sort of stuff. This is before WordPress, right? So anyway, I'm coding that. I could feel her presence, and she said, you know that's a book, right? And I'm like, what do you mean it's a book? This is what I just gave on stage. She was like, that 5-step thing, that's a book. And I was like, why would I write a book on this? Like, Christiane Northrup, she's the one for women's health right now. And the psychology stuff that I was talking about, I'm like, well, but there's already Wayne Dyer. And you know, me with my background in Chinese medicine and conventional medicine, I'm like, I don't know, why would I try to compete with Deepak Chopra? And she was like, all of those people may have a similar message, but you're a different messenger. And they have their own way of speaking and saying things that may not even resonate with certain people, but the way you deliver it will resonate with others. And it kind of hit me like, but little old me? But when I went home and I sat with it, I was like, well, why would I feel less than? And it's true. I remembered back in my days as a medical resident teaching, you know, the third years and teaching these other doctors. And I was like, yeah, I have my own sort of way of teaching, and it does work for some people. The way I see things is slightly different. We might be teaching the same material. And it was that moment that really solidified it for me. Like, yeah, there's value in that. And I love it. So I would just invite you to think about your contribution as being unique. And it's not about comparing yourself to other people, because of course you're going to feel fake, because you're not them. You weren't born as them. Otherwise you would have, you know, been hanging out in the same womb, right? But even an identical twin has a completely different energy in most cases, right? You came to this earth to be you. You're here for your own spiritual journey and your own destiny. And yes, many of us will do similar things, and there will be people who are always several steps ahead of us. But it doesn't diminish the value of you, and it doesn't diminish the need that you are here to fulfill. And it may not be perfect your first time out. Heaven knows. Oh my Lord. I've told you guys that I've been on Oprah several times, but you will not see certain clips because it wasn't perfect the first time, and yet it had an impact. So it's okay. And the reason why I say it's okay is because if you at least get your first thing out, like that's what this synergy group is. It's like, if I have to hear one more person telling me, oh, I thought of that idea. You see that thing on TV or that book? I thought of that last year or 2 years ago. Why didn't I do that? I'm like, just get it out. Even if it's imperfect, we can always improve. But if it stays in your head, it's not helping anyone. Even the free stuff that you create can be helping someone today. Literally. All right? So I'm getting off my soapbox. I thought today was going to be a shorter session, and yet here we are. Thank you so much for being here. Please know, my dear friends, that I truly do consider you to be a gift to this world. You are a gift. And I thank you for all of the love, the virtual hugs. Thank you. Yes, you are different messengers. Yes, yes, yes. All right, good. So I'm glad that this was helpful to you. And, you know, I usually end that story with a little punchline. And that is this. Once I got off of my fear of not being as cool as all those other people, when I did get my first book published, I ended up having an endorsement on the book by Wayne Dyer and Christiane Northrup. And then the following year, I was hanging out with Deepak at his place in California, and then in Puerto Rico for the Peace Conference. But if I had stayed in that little, no, I'm just this little, you know, then I would have never had those experiences, and I wouldn't be here with you now. So dare to dream and dream big, and just know that you're not alone. You've got this beautiful virtual community supporting you. All right? So thank you again, my dear friends. I wish you a wonderful Sunday, and I will see you tomorrow for deep dive number 3, where we will be talking about how you can create your own signature product based on your expertise, your intellectual property. All right? Have a wonderful evening. I'm sending you much love from France.